So I just wanted to say hi, everyone. My name is Shri Patel, and I'm from India Home. Today, my colleagues and I will be discussing how to meet target populations where they are during this webinar. I'd like to take a few moments to encourage everyone to introduce themselves either by unmuting and turning on your camera, or if you're unable to do so, please write your name and organization in the chat, just so we can get an idea of who we're seeing here today. We really appreciate you joining the webinar. Hi, Sheila. It's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started just so we can stay on time. So I just wanted to turn over to my colleagues before we begin the webinar to introduce themselves before I give an introduction.
And sorry, feel free to input your info in the chat. If you are able to introduce yourselves, it would be great. Have an engaging session. And yeah, I'll go ahead, hand it over.
Hi everyone, my name is Dill. I'm the outreach supervisor here at India Home. I've been here for a bit over 2 years. I'll be providing some insight as well as monitoring the chat for any questions, comments, and concerns.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victoria. I'm a community health worker with India Home for actually a year and 7 months to be exact. I'm also a graduate student in an epidemiology program, and I work on the COVID-19 vaccine initiatives and will be presenting on accessibility.
So to reintroduce myself, hi everyone, my name is Shri Patel. I'm a data analyst for India Home. I've been at India Home for about a year and a half, and I'm currently in graduate school to get a master's in public health as well. I work on more of the data-related aspects of our grants, so reporting, making sure deliverables are in, that sort of thing. So I'm just going to be sort of monitoring and handling the logistics of this webinar here today, and Victoria will be doing a lot of the content of the presentation. So for our agenda, we're looking at just an introduction into accessibility and what that means. And then we're going to go into how we have met populations where they are, finding a way to look at target populations and meeting them in the places that they are rather than having them come to you. Then we'll go over some tailored methods as well as a bit of an activity where we'll go through a scenario and discuss some of the key takeaways that we have here today. And then we'll end off with some key takeaways and a conclusion of our webinar. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to hand it over to Victoria now.
Thank you, Shri. So I first want to talk about what does it mean to be accessible? We believe it means providing health services, resources, and information that community members need to address their specific health needs and that are easily obtainable, and also able to be utilized in an easier way. So let's discuss how a CBO or a health department, as a matter of fact, also can be more accessible. This would be through addressing literacy and communication levels, building trust, and providing culturally relevant information. So let's start with addressing literacy levels. With literacy levels, they can be addressed by making the information more digestible. And this is actually because people absorb information in different ways. We're going to talk about a tailored approach a little bit later about that, but I just wanted to make the statement that in terms of health literacy, you want the information to be digestible and on a level that everyone can understand. Building trust and rapport are very, very important. For India Home, building trust with community members involves repeated presences, creating a safe space, and working with partners in order to make the resources more accessible. You can provide culturally relevant information through cultural events and even storytelling in collaboration with other people. India Home, we provide a lot of information through our cultural events and storytelling with our older adults. In language, pretty much refers to communication that combines their health literacy and their language needs together. The picture is actually me celebrating our Diwali event with some of our older adults, my besties, I like to say also. And it's at events like this that we will bring COVID-19 vaccine resources to the spotlight. And here's actually a screen grab, an example of the storytelling. So this was a project we were working on called NYSEAL Storytelling Project. It was a way for our older adults to share with their fellow community members how the COVID-19 vaccine actually supported their health. It meets the language needs because it's in their primary language, which was Hindi, and it even had English subtitles for other people to understand if they didn't speak Hindi. As far as addressing communication channels, you do have to be available not in one, but through multiple communication channels in order to be accessible. This is because not everyone accesses information in the same way. So, the same way people don't absorb information the same way, not everyone has access to information in the same way. India Home, for example, we have social media and even newsletters that have sections dedicated to COVID-19 initiatives for updates, guidelines, and resources. So, we included with other stuff as well. Here's just a brief example of what our newspaper looks like, newsletter rather, sorry. You can see it starts off with Dear Family as well. So we like to make it really inclusive, make our older adults feel like they're family. At the end of the day, when you work with community members, you want them to feel included. So a newsletter is actually a really great way to do that and sneak in some COVID-19 information. Let's talk about how we have actually met populations where they're at so you guys can kind of get some real-time examples. So one of the things that we do is enreach at our older adult centers. This is one of the ways we started meeting populations where they were at, probably one of our first step initiatives. For example, we played a crossword puzzle game to help other older adults understand relevant terms, which was actually really fun. We ended up having to change the format a few times to match their literacy of crossword puzzles, but we still made it fun and potentially easier for them to do while getting our point across. And we're actually going to take a look at some examples. So this was the first prototype, I call it. It was a fall and winter Q&A. We had some questions down there. For example, this weather makes it harder to fight infections. This virus has been around since the 1900s. Just easy, quick facts. But I do want to mention that beforehand, we actually prepared them by teaching them the information. So we made sure to have an education session beforehand where all the answers were already there and presented. We just had to make sure they were paying attention. So they had to pay attention to what was being said in order to do the crossword puzzle teach back. Let's move on to the next prototype that we had. They didn't understand the crossword puzzle aspect, so we changed it up a little bit to kind of explain it to them. We color coded it to make it easier. You can see 5 down is highlighted as 5 down in purple. And we also kind of explained what the across down concept means. But unfortunately, they were still having a hard time with it. But you have to meet people where they're at. So here's a final example. We just zoomed in on one of the crossword puzzle, the new updated version. So you see we have the boxes here and you give them a clue. This weather makes it harder to fight infections, and it's 4 letters. Does anyone want to go? Oh, well, cold. Yeah. I know everyone here probably is aware that that's what that is, but yeah, cold weather. So we had them fill it out just like that, kind of like filling it out as they go along with the questions. So that's a good example of how we met our older adults where they were at with getting information about COVID-19, about flu season, all that stuff out, but in a fun and engaging way. And it met their needs. They didn't know how to do a crossword puzzle. So we had to make it still fun, still like a game, and still kind of similar where they had to input the answers themselves. Another example of how we have met populations is going to hubs. So we are a nonprofit based in New York City and Queens. So we go to a lot of hubs in the Queens community, whether it be food pantries, schools, libraries. Our favorite is houses of worship. So you go to a lot of churches, a lot of temples, a lot of mosques. Like I said earlier, you have to meet the people. You can't expect them to come find you for the information. At our own center, we are actually partnered with an organization that helps us do a monthly food pantry to bring halal foods. And we feel this is a great method of meeting people where they're at because we acknowledge their diverse eating needs. But now they're more trusting of us and they're more willing to accept the information and then so forth on, do the crossword puzzle. And before you know it, you're able to communicate with people in a much more efficient way. Also using social media platforms, like I mentioned, we have social media, but we also have a WhatsApp group for our older adults that they communicate in. It allows us to communicate through a channel that our older adults are more familiar with because a lot of them have family and friends outside of the country. They use WhatsApp to contact them. So we're like, what? We should just use WhatsApp as well. And they can share information with each other. All right, so let's move into some specific tailored methods. I know I gave some examples of what it means to be accessible, how India Home was accessible, but I wanted to go into a little bit more detail. So tailored methods include understanding the needs of the priority population, doing translations, hosting vaccine clinics, and working with local government officials. And I want to just mention again, these are four specific tailored methods that we were brainstorming and that we use. You want to have, of course, you have to understand the needs of the priority population. So, for example, we work with majority South Asian population. What we have seen with them is a language barrier, cultural differences, and we notice that a repeated presence is needed. You never know. You might meet a community that's like, hey, we don't want you here too often, but they still want to have some form of communication with them. So you kind of have to tailor to each population. Translations are very important because remember what I said about in language, not only is it health literacy, but it's also making sure, of course, people can understand the resources. So giving out resources in multiple languages. And this is something we do in our COVID-19 disparities grant. We are partnered with our Department of Health, the Department of Mental Health and Hygiene in New York City. We make these resource brochures, give them out at outreaches, and we also do translated flyers that help provide health insurance information, where, of course, the program that we have in New York City, individuals can get COVID-19 vaccines for free. So it's very important to get this information out there, and translating it is a huge piece. I did want to mention, which we talked about in one of our past webinars, that translations provided by credible sources. I want to give an example. The CDC website does have, translated material. However, what we've noticed working with our South Asian older adults and other people is just sometimes the dialect is completely different and you need someone that's really, really well versed in the language to do the translations for you. Bringing vaccine or vaccination clinics rather to community members, I would say is something I enjoy doing, and it definitely helps bringing the vaccines to them. I know a lot of times we'll go out and outreach and we'll ask, oh, do you want us to schedule you an appointment? And they're like, maybe. But if you bring it to them at an event, at their places of worship, for example, we've brought our vaccine clinics to mosque, community sites, and to our own older adult centers. It's easier for them to have access to it. It's easier for them to ask questions that they may not be able to ask or are uncomfortable with asking their pharmacists. So if you have workers that are trustworthy hosting these vaccine clinics, people are more inclined to come. And of course, working with local government officials. I cannot stress how important this is. one of the ways to best reach a community, especially in a heavily dense population like New York City, is you have to work with the people that oversee the zip codes, for example. So our council member, Natasha Williams, we've done a lot of events with her. Community Board 12, which don't worry, I know not, not everyone here is from New York, but in Queens, well, throughout the city, rather, the 5 boroughs, there are local governments called community boards, and they handle a lot of like concerns that are going on. They give feedback to like upper heads and stuff like that. They will post their flyers on our social media. So if you partner with other local government officials outside of the health department, outside of nonprofits, you're definitely going to reach even a more diverse population of people because they know where to go. In that picture, we're actually with Senator Comrie. He's one of the senators for New York. So we were there with him at an event that he actually asked us to be at. So that was very cool. And I'm going to pass it over to Shri for a brief discussion, a scenario, and hopefully let's get some participation in, guys. Let's see if you can apply what you learned.
Thank you so much, Victoria, for sharing that information. It was great insights into the work that India Home has done. So for this discussion, we are going to play the role of a community-based organization. For example, you are in a neighborhood with a very large South Asian population, and it is booster season, so your organization is tasked with increasing vaccination rates within older adults within the city. So the first question is, where would you look to do a potential outreach? Where in the community would you search for to set up potential outreaches? Does anyone have any ideas that they would like to toss out? Unfortunately, I'm not able to see the screen because I'm sharing the slides, but Bill, if you're able to call on someone or check in the chat, please just give some ideas of where you would potentially look for an outreach or an educational session, if that's what you're looking to do.
So let's see, we have no one in the chat at the moment. Does anyone want to unmute real quick?
I'll jump in and just say that I think you would want to identify where the places are in the community where that population is gathering. And a lot of them you guys have mentioned, like churches, for instance. And I always think it's great when you have someone within that community who knows people and can be like a trusted voice to help you spread your message too.
Thank you so much, Charity. That was a great idea. Churches, houses of worship, it is a lot of people's third place. Many times people have their homes, their jobs, and then their third place is where they spend a majority of their time. And an important part of looking into this scenario is the idea you are going to have to do the research within the community. And the best way to know that is to connect with people who are already in the community and find out where their older like parents or older adults within the community may be gathering. So churches, mosques, temples are all great ideas. Would a business outreach be appropriate in this time, potentially outside a grocery store or maybe outside like a Home Depot or I don't know, Target? Like, would that be appropriate in this scenario? Does anyone have any insights?
I do want to mention that Keith said DHS senior program. So yes, definitely. Boom. New York City has a lot of Deshi senior centers actually. So yeah, definitely. I know
Thank
you
you so
mentioned grocery stores. Oh yeah, thanks, Keith. I know you mentioned grocery stores. I actually just thought of this off the top of my head. We mentioned providing halal foods. Go to grocery stores that serve halal food. That's a trusted grocery store in the community or a restaurant that serves halal food, meet with the people there, see who they know.
That's a great idea. Thank you for that, Victoria. So another question would be, who would you reach out to? What potential community leaders would you try to connect with in order to foster partnerships and to gather more information in your research and where to do an outreach. Does anyone have any ideas of what community leaders you would reach out to, like types? Would you reach out to local government? Would you reach out to preachers, leaders at churches?
I'll go again actually because I brainstorming because I wasn't like programmed to answer these questions, but now that we're talking about it, um, schools, believe it or not, parent coordinators that are in contact with parents who might need language accessibility, might not know where to get resources. One of the schools we actually partner with has a huge Bangladeshi and Hispanic slash Latinx community. So we stay in contact with that parent coordinator. That's just a good example of like a leader you could reach out to.
It's a great idea. I know that with school outreaches, it's really difficult to manage the logistics and the administrative bureaucracy, like trying to get in and outreach. So getting head on and like FaceTime with a parent coordinator would be a great idea, because they have connection to the school and they're also interested in helping out the community, not just the children at the school. So that's a great idea. Does anyone have any final thoughts about how they could even potentially target, or just any general ideas on how to raise vaccination rates?
Yeah, like how else would you meet them? Pretty much where they're at.
I would just add for the school point, like how it connects to seniors too, just like with South Asian seniors being very likely to live in an intergenerational household, like they're more likely to live with their grandkids, they're more likely to live with their children, and how that like can be a connector. Sending home like in language material with the children. But I also wanted to add faith leaders are a great way to reach out, given that house of worship are such a like key touch point for South Asian seniors, engaging faith leaders because that's kind of like their trusted leader. So I would add that.
Yeah, that's a great point to bring up. All right. So I'm going to hand it back over to Victoria to go over some key takeaways and to wrap up our webinar here today.
Thank you, Sheree, and thank you, Charity and Keith, for participating, and Sharon, you, of course, as well. So we want you guys to take away from this webinar that ensuring accessible COVID-19 vaccine education means. It means having clear communication that's tailored to diverse needs. One size does not fit all. You want to provide equitable access to resources and information. So you want to make sure that everyone knows where to find the information. For steps, this involves the usage of multilingual workers, and like we highlighted, cultural events are a really great way. I know we did actually attend Black History Month events as well, because there are a lot of Indo-Caribbean who have South Asian ethnicity backgrounds that attend these events as well. So it's definitely important to go to cultural events. Maintaining a consistent presence. You can't just go somewhere once and then not show up ever again, even twice sometimes. I mean, we'll go to a spot a couple of times. Utilizing in-language approaches. And remember what I said, I feel like this is a combination of health literacy and actual language, whether it's English, Spanish, Hindi. New York City has a lot of language needs. So for us, that's why in-language approaches are very important. And leveraging community storytelling for better engagement. I know a lot of people see the COVID-19 commercials on TV now that had like Travis Kelce and stuff like that in it. But if you're working on a more local level in a community, not everyone's going to see that. So why not use people in the community that look like them, that reflect them, to kind of tell these stories for a better engagement? The auntie that did our storytelling project had some great examples of how the vaccine helped her family. And I feel like a lot of the older adults that we work with can look up to her and be like, okay, she feels it's safe, then maybe it's safe for us too. And just to go over the tailored methods, like we said, distributing multilingual resources, collaborating with health departments for the related grants. I can't stress this enough. Gotta collaborate with our local health department, CBOs and health departments, offering information at places of worship and community events, and of course, engaging local government officials for effective outreach to diverse communities. Call your city councilman. I mean, the communities are the people that vote them in. We vote for our city council members here. So who better knows the community than someone that was voted in by them? Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to hand it back over to Shri for any questions or any further discussions that you guys want to have.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. Does anyone have any questions about the material that Victoria presented here today, or any general comments about this topic in particular?
And we do have a toolkit that highlights all of this that we will be handing out, kind of like a checklist. So you can remind yourself, like before going outside or asking someone to go outside, kind of just be like, wait, do I have all these things in check first? We tend to do that. We do that a lot as well.
Good job, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Charity. I hope the information was helpful.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for participating today and joining us in our webinar. We really appreciate your time. And we will send a follow-up email again with the checklist that Victoria was discussing a little bit earlier, as well as a copy of the slides in case you want to refer back to any of this information later. I have attached our emails to the slide right here, so please feel free to email us at any time with any questions or concerns. We will be hosting another webinar next Thursday on community partnerships and creating partnerships with different community-based organizations. If you wish to join us, the registration link will be included in our follow-up email, and we hope to see you there. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Keith. And that's really cool that you're from the Virgin Islands Department of Health. That's awesome.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.